Anand Atal, who has been with this program since its inception. Here is Naveen and Mr. Atal.
Naveen Girn, I'd like to welcome you to Aaradhna.
Thank you, Atal Saab.
And it is a great pleasure to have you because you are one of the people behind producing this program.
Well, thank you for inviting me to the show.
Naveen, I've looked forward to this moment because I talk to people and to them you are a known face, you are a known quantity. But then when we turn around, they really don't know Naveen all that much. So one of the things we are trying to do is to try to bring toward our regular viewers, a lot of them, about who Naveen is and what is his role in the program.
Well, thank you for inviting me to the show again. And I'm kind of surprised that the viewers would ask so much about me. I don't consider myself so much of a known figure, but thank them for asking. My role here with Aaradhna is a pretty stable one. I've been the host for Aaradhna, and by the time this interview airs, we've probably reached our 150th episode. So that's quite a landmark. I mean, I always tell people that those numbers at the end of the closing credits actually mean something. So 150 episodes is what we reach now. And yeah, throughout the whole time I've been the host. Along with you and Shishmaji, we work together as a team trying to make some sort of thematic mission statement for Aaradhna, which we've tried to keep steady for 150 weeks.
And a lot of people have bought into it.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work from all the team members. People watch it regularly, and if it is something special program, you quickly hear it from others.
That's true, yeah, for sure.
Now tell me, Naveen, how did you get introduced to IT productions? And Sushmaji, I suppose.
Well, that's quite a good question to ask. It's a very long story. It started off about 6 years ago when I was in high school. And in high school, they had this program called Work Experience. And when I was doing my last semester of work experience, I called up Shishmaji and asked her if I can come down and work with IT productions. She said, sure, come on down. I had the inkling then to be a journalist, so she said, sure, come on down. And so I came that first day, my three-piece suit. It was a new one that I bought too. And I came here, and Shishmaji said, hi, Naveen. And then she put me straight to work, coiling wires. So I was in this studio, in fact, coiling wires for 2.5 hours. That's all I did. My three-piece suit was dusty and ruined by the end of it. But it was a good learning experience, I guess, about starting out from the bottom. And quickly from then, I started doing film reviews for What's New Vancouver, which was on back then. Moved on to editing, back to What's New Vancouver again. And yeah, I've had a broad range of experience here, through radio a bit, on TV as a host, as an editor, as an executive producer on a couple of shows about the Air India trial, which we did with our quite talented radio host, Neera Ajit. So yeah, I've had a broad range of experience here.
That's very good. Knowing Sushmaji, I think probably she wanted you to run through all aspects of the work which is done in IT production.
Well, that's what she tells me, yeah. It's pretty much, yeah, get used to everything, because that's the thing here. It's quite a small company, but we get to learn many aspects of the television industry, of broadcasting, that we wouldn't get to find out in any other business. So it's quite a good experience to place.
First time I was I took notice of you when you were doing some work. Did you know that? Some program like that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very neat. Now, how did you steer into Aaradhna? I know you do a few more things in IT productions, like you do a lot of creative work with What's New in Vancouver. Could you elaborate on these two?
Well, for sure. What's New Vancouver is a show that's close to my heart. I started off doing Do You Knows on there, which is 2-minute short segments about science or history or things like that, topics of general interest. And now it's moved on to more editing focused on West Vancouver. Of course, I do something that's really close to my heart as well, watching films, watching Bollywood films. So I talk about those and talk about upcoming clips. And yeah, I edit the show as well. And we spend hours on each segment of the program, me and Sudhir. And a lot of time on one particular part of the show, in particular, the closing credits, which I don't know if people notice or not, but those are close to our heart. We spend lots of time filling with colors or making people blink with the music beat, which is a fun thing to do for us.
Well, the editing plus all the other things you do, that's the creative aspect.
Exactly. And then with Aaradhna, the show started about 2.5 years ago, and we're looking for a host for the show, and Shishmaji thought that I would be a good host, and hopefully I have been so far. It was probably certainly because of my personal background that she thought that I would be a good person for the show. I know we'll get into it later on, but I've tried to, through my own personal experience, bring some sort of cohesiveness through my announcements about what the show's about and what sort of themes we're bringing up in our programs. Yeah.
No, I have always had a feeling that there will be time when you, after listening to so many interviews about Hinduism and related spirituality,
Right.
it can reach a saturation point. But whenever I look at you, I know there is an inherent desire in you to learning
Thank you.
about the not only Hinduism but also Sikhism. But you have a background in both of them. Could you throw some light on your spiritual aspect of your life?
For sure, yeah. As you mentioned, I do come from a dual family. My mother has a history of being a Hindu and a Sikh, and my father is a Sikh. I've grown up in that dual household with two religions. But it's never been that much of a big deal. I mean, that's sort of the theme we brought up in Aaradhna many times, is the difference between textuality, what's Hinduism or Sikhism, what Hinduism, for instance, has written in the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedas and the Upanishads, and how people experience that in their own life through meditation or through yoga. And there's a difference there sometimes, but there's also a bond between those two realms. And that's what I brought my own life, trying to bridge a bond between Sikhism and Hinduism, which I both respect as religions as both, and are both part of my ancestry. So the bond I found, of course, has been that idea of that one God. And moreover, not just in Hinduism and Sikhism, because it's tough to demarcate those religions as separate entities, but all world religions have talked about social responsibility and social causes and humanity and human rights, and those things that I have gained support from my religion, I've used in my life.
It's very true, and I'm very delighted to hear this from a young person as you are, coming out. It's a very coherent vision.
Thank you.
Of both Sikhism and Hinduism. And any observer, outside observer, quickly see that the overlap between the spirituality of both the religion is remarkable.
Right. I mean, growing up in a multicultural country like Canada, I've had the opportunity to experience many different religions. A couple of months ago, I had a chance to go see the Dalai Lama at the Christ Church in downtown. A couple of months ago, I also went to see a wedding at the Jamaat Khana. So growing up in this multicultural society, it's so important not to ghettoize oneself within one religion and only do Sikh things or only do Hindu things. When there's so many different cultures here that we have the opportunity to meet and learn from, why not take that opportunity?
That's a true pleasure of living in a multicultural society.
For sure.
Because you are living with them.
Yeah.
And now let me take you back to your family.
Okay.
I want to explore with you what kind of guidance and nurturing you had from your family. Could you tell us about your family a bit?
For sure. Well, my family is a pretty cool family. I have a father and a mother and two older sisters. I'm the youngest of the family, but I'm not spoiled. I do my equal share.
Definitely are not.
I do equal share of work at home. But in terms of spirituality, from a very young age, I was taken both to the Gurdwara and to a mandir, where I've learned the customs of both the temples, made them an integral part of my life. And my mother used to tell me stories about Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita, and of course about the gurus as well. We've had these comic books about the gurus, which we used to read all the time, which are available at the temple back then. So yeah, from a very young age, I've never felt that I was different somehow. I always felt that those two things, Hinduism and Sikhism, are very natural to me and to my personality.
And it shows on you. I think the way you approach it, my mind sees that you have no conflict moving from one to the other, and questions you ask after the interviews, they also tell me that you are connecting to them.
Thank you, yeah.
Now, tell me, being raised in a country like Canada, with the kind of strong family values and cultural and religious values, there must be some conflicts when, and these conflicts I hear about, as a former teacher.
Right.
What are some of the conflicts you may have observed as you were going through high school and university years?
Well, probably two major conflicts really pop up. The first one, of course, has been an element of racism, which, of course, even though this is a multicultural society, those elements do exist. I myself have been quite lucky not having to suffer the most severest aspects of them, but it does exist. And it sort of, once you experience it for the first time, of course, it's a very jarring and shocking incident because you're not too sure how to react to it. Some people react by becoming part of a cohesive group, by forming with others of their own kind, for instance.
They try to seek shelter in a clique or...
That's right, a clique, yeah. But that's probably, that helps for some people to gain a support system. It's very good. But others try to, what I've done, is try to gain as much broader experience as I can as possible, having Chinese Canadian friends, having Latino friends. Through that experience, I've tried to gain, there's not something specific about South Asian racism that's not applicable to anyone else. And once you find out that these people also have experienced racism, and so have other people through gender or through class, then there's bonds that can be shared through your common experience. And that's a very good experience to share, to have.
And you meet some very good friends that way.
Exactly.
Who can be lifelong friends eventually.
Yeah.
But you share with them the family values and a lot of other experiential values.
Exactly, yeah. And then you brought the topic, of course, of problems with the South Asian community. Now, I'm probably not the best one to talk about this. On our sister program, Ustat, we've had a couple of people come on and talk about this aspect from United, a group of young South Asians who are helping to solve these problems, also Virza. But the things that I've found have been the sort of nurturing of this notion of aggressive masculinity that happens sometimes in the South Asian culture. And that's not the best way to go about nurturing an individual, sometimes I find, either through peer pressure or through cultural values or through the extended family of cousins. This sort of notion sometimes pops up in people's lives, and there's an easy temptation for power and for money that comes up as well, which should be avoided.
It can be taken too far. It can be very corrosive to your own developing your own sense of self, but that is a topic by itself. I think we have to come back.
For sure.
Coming back to, I'm interested also in what you do to relax, I've seen you put in long hours here. Yeah. What do you do to relax in real life?
Well, that's the funny thing, because Sushmaji has always said that we should put a hammock here in the studio so I can go to sleep afterwards, because I'm usually here till like midnight. I edit programs and I do my school, and to relax, I usually just do some reading. I'm a big fan of literature, and so just to have free time to read a book is something that I really look forward to. It's something very special to me. Or to watch a movie. I have a very irregular schedule, which is probably not healthy.
So you never get tired of watching movies while editing them?
Sometimes I watch the entire film while I'm editing it, yeah. But yeah, coming home late at night and just throwing on a movie and then going straight to bed and waking up again in the morning. It's an irregular schedule, but I'm young and I can handle it, so it's okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Naveen, as you said yourself, you are much more than what we have just talked about. You, of course, are a university student.
Yeah.
You are working on your degree program.
Mm-hmm.
Let's delve into your academic aspect of it.
Okay.
What are the courses you are taking, or what program you are pursuing at SFU?
For sure. Yeah, I go to Simon Fraser University, and I don't know, it's kind of uncomfortable talking about myself, but I'm doing a triple major, which means I'm doing a bachelor's in 3 different courses, political science, history, and English. So that's my major interests. I've always never thought I would do a triple major. I never even heard of a triple major when when I started out. It just happened by itself, I guess. I started taking these courses, and I loved each course individually. And as my school progressed, I found that there's so many interconnections between the two, between political science and history and literature. So that's why I kept going, and now it's become a triple major.
So you said you political science. Let's take one of them, and I think the limits put by the timing of this program won't allow us to go into it.
Right.
What fascinates you about political science?
Well, the thing about political science that interests me a lot is Middle Eastern and South Asian politics. Of course, Aaradhna is a program about religion, and in India, for instance, there's been an uprise for probably 20 years or so of the sort of Hindu nationalist political parties in India. And so I've studied those a lot, and I've studied that aspect of popular political systems, as it's called. But I'm also interested more in political theory and human rights. I'm one of those people who believe there are such things as human rights and universal human rights. And I've tried to apply those things in my life, in my own social causes, trying to help people in other parts of the world who do suffer from the bad effects of capitalism or bad government systems, for instance. So, yeah, politics is very close to my heart.
Well, of course, you also take history major.
Yeah.
So you probably put a history filter on it.
Exactly.
So what made you interested in history, and how do you combine your inputs? Because taking 3 majors means not only a lot of courses, but also learning new ideas from there.
You make it sound like it's a difficult thing. I guess I never thought about it that way, but it probably is very, it's broad, I guess. Politics and history really work together well, tracing, for instance, the historical movement of political ideologies over a period of time. That can be really done quite easily, or you can do it through pamphlets, which brings in the English part of it as well. For me, history has been a love for Middle Eastern history, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Egypt as well, but also a bit of history of Canadian history as well. turn of the century history of Sikh immigration, for instance, has been a real passion of mine.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. For instance, through my own research, I found things like the 1907 Chinatown riots. And many people have focused on this only in the Chinese community, have focused on the aspect of these riots that happened that were supported by the Vancouver councillors and the mayors.
Establishment was very much.
That's
yes,
very true, but many people don't know that many Sikhs were also kicked out of their homes during that same time period out of America in Bellingham, and many of them were also in Chinatown at the time of these riots that occurred. So in that sense, I mean, I know it's a common theme of this interview now, but these cross-cultural bonds that as our history that we share with many other cultural groups is something that I love unearthing because it shows something broader than just our own one culture group, just South Asians, just Chinese Canadians. By forming these bonds, we can learn more about being what Canadian is.
You're right on. I think we have very ethnocentric view of the society.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the things you have talked about tell me it is possible to break down these boundaries and you become like a true Canadian.
It's necessary to break down these boundaries. Otherwise, I mean, then we're just inhabiting our old cultures in a new society. The meaning of Canada is multiculturalism.
Naveen, it has been a pleasure talking to you, and I think we have simply scratched the surface here. And maybe one day we will talk again to look at full-blown aspects of your academic learning.
Thank you, Atal Saab. I didn't think that the 15 minutes would go so fast, and I didn't think that it wasn't as painful as I thought it would be.
Well, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.